It looks like we're live.
Oh, great.
Are we? At least Zoom claims so.
The meeting is being live streamed, it says. Got it.
Pretty stoked. Thanks, guys, for doing this on such short notice.
I would never pass up the chance to chat with you, gentlemen.
Yeah, I'm trying to multitask here.
Cool.
Well, you know, we're all live streaming all the time, aren't we? It's live. We're live. This is the Truman Show.
Always be stacking stats. Always.
It's the Truman Show.
So yeah, Max, I have a couple of your clips on my soundboard that I use periodically. Yeah. Big fan.
That's nice.
Got the one with you debating Peter Schiff.
You fail to understand that it's a new technology that is as profound as the printing press.
And then the one I think you were talking to the newscaster, ripping up the money.
Do you know that with the Bitcoin I have, I can buy any freaking senator or congressman I want? I make the laws. He who has the Bitcoin makes the law.
Yeah. Couple of classics right there.
Great moments. Flawless. Yeah, it's good to have Steven on too. So Steven has really been instrumental in creating kind of a massive Bitcoin movement across Arizona. We're now running 3 meetups.
I appreciate that, man. You started it. You laid the groundwork. You've been building the Tucson scene for quite a while now.
Yeah, we're done with it. We're done with this fiat garbage.
Love it. Arizona is low-key freedom territory.
Yeah, so far, you know, we're having this event on Thursday at Last Exit Live. And so the turnout's pretty good. You know, initially we were thinking, well, you know, Phoenix might not be as big a market as Austin or LA or New York. But it's becoming, you know, pretty exciting. There's a real vibrancy here. Very exciting stuff.
Yeah, I think the timing is just perfect for you guys to come out here. I'm really stoked. I think people are going to have a lot of fun.
As am I. I'm stoked for Thursday.
Yeah.
So what can we expect?
Well, you know, the point of these, you know, is to go to different places and kind of showcase what's happening locally. And it's like a meetup, but we try to add actual, like more pizzazz to a meetup. You know, meetup, generally people meet up and they chat, and you know, so we're trying to make it like a supercharged meetup. And music, have it really like in a music venue. So with a stage, you know, we have a lot of people, some sponsors come in. So it's like almost like a mini conference. We say it's all party, no conference. It's like all the best parts of the conference are when people are kind of hanging out at the bar. So we just have that for it. And so we're just trying to do as many of these as we can. You know, response has been good, but, you know, showcase local people like Fold is here. Steve Cole is here. You know, people that are big in the community, put them geographically where they are, because, you know, usually in online, people like lose track geographically where people are. So we get to see, you know, who's actually where and how they're all working together.
Yeah, I'm excited. Feels like it's got a good energy to it. Do you guys have a next place on your radar for after Phoenix?
Well, the next place we're going is Paris. We got booked to do an event in Paris, and it's basically a private event. There's a company called Paymium there. I guess it's the biggest Bitcoin exchange in Europe. So they heard about this Fuck Elon tour, and they have booked us. And, you know, it's interesting in Europe, and particularly in France, they're very anti-authoritarian in France. You know, it goes back obviously to their creation and the revolution and everything. And so they're having a lot of fun with it. And then, so that'll be September. And then looking forward to November and December, we'll have to see. A couple of cities that pop out that seem like good ones would be Nashville. There's a big scene in Nashville. A lot of venues in Nashville, and you know, I'm trying not to necessarily go back to Miami, New York, LA. You know, try to go to different cities and other cities that I don't know. Like, I don't really know Nashville. I've never been to Nashville, so it's a chance for us to actually go to places, explore places, and get to know them. So it's pretty up in the air. You know, this Eventbrite app that I use is incredible. You can just set this whole thing up on the app. Find a venue, book the venue, the ticketing app, check people in. It's just, the whole thing is done, really. I'm just working the phone here. It's just amazing with the world we live in, what we can do on apps these days.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Nashville's one of my favorite cities.
I've never been either. I would love to visit. And if I'm not mistaken, the Bitcoin Magazine headquarters is out there too. So probably a good little core group of Bitcoiners.
All right.
Yeah,
All right. That's good to know.
I don't know what it's been like over the past year, but you just have amazing music. And if you don't like country music, Nashville will make you like country music. Just walking up.
Good barbecue, good music. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you guys,
Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead.
Did you guys pick a drink for the event?
We have Jen, the bartender, in the Orange Pill Telegram group, who kind of comes up with our designer cocktails. I'm not sure exactly what will be featured at this event yet. I'm still in the dark about that. Oh yeah,
Gotcha.
I should mention we have 4 tickets to give away to Bitcoin 2022.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, 4 tickets to give away to Bitcoin 2022. Plus, we have a lot more stuff from our sponsors that they sent over that we'll be giving that stuff away as well. So you know, it's a good deal. Good deal. Good and a lot of fun.
And they recently unveiled the details, right, for Bitcoin 2022. So it's Miami again, and it's April 6th to the 9th, I believe. Right?
Yeah, Miami Convention Center. So it's a different venue, big venue, looks good. Miami.
They're saying like 35,000 for next year. They're expecting.
Yeah, they're really broadening the mission to being, you know, the cultural zeitgeist of Bitcoin, defining this generation. And similar, I guess, to the way Woodstock did back in the 60s. And so it's just this huge festival of peace, love, and Bitcoin.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Attendees going parabolic like the Bitcoin price.
Yeah, exactly.
I think one of the good things is there'll be a lot more people that are maxis by that time to kind of chase the shitcoiners out.
Well, it's a battle. You know, the shitcoiners are bringing in, you know, more firepower, right? So they're bringing in the Silicon Valley people and the clueless billionaires, and so they're really prepping for the front, you know, some more battles. The central bank digital currencies are getting ready to enter the fray. You know, it's going to be a battle. You know, I mean, the Bitcoin's journey has always been one of it's been battling through the FUD, battling through the shitcoiners. You know, it's been you know, a battle. So I think that the battle is going to become more intense. I really do. I mean, you know, the regulators are figuring out what to do. Nobody whose life depends on fiat money and shitcoins is just going to roll over. I mean, they're gonna put up a fight.
Yeah, it seems like they've got fat marketing budgets, and that now the warfare is digital. It's the information warfare now, right? And so the battlefield is Twitter, the battlefield is YouTube, and there's a lot of psychology to it. But yeah, I'm optimistic about the intransigent minority of Bitcoiners who get this. And Bitcoin's been number one for the 12 years it's existed, despite no marketing budget, no employees, none of the advantages, so to speak, that any of the shitcoins have.
Right. Well, it fulfills a human need that, so that's its reason to exist. And it does so in such an elegant, brilliant way, an accessible way, that you can just see how it's going to completely dominate going forward. And just the pushback, though, from those who are challenged by it is going to get more intense. You know, it's just going to get more intense. I know. That's what I mean. That's what I say.
What do you think the attack vectors are going to look like?
I think that the attack vectors are going to be, basically no holds barred, and there's going to be the greatest development in the last few months, I would say, would be the number of U.S. senators that are now Bitcoiners. So we have that fifth column inside government. That's really where I think we'll make a big difference. As the percentage of Congress becomes Bitcoiners, the number of governors and mayors across the country, once they flip, that's really the where I think we have the greatest traction.
Yeah, I would plus one that as well. It's been really cool to see Senator Lummis, among a couple of others, who seem to really get this, appreciate what Bitcoin is and can bring to society. And when you think about the progression of Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin's inevitable. And whether it is this dark, violent, dystopian upgrade path, or whether it's this peaceful, like we all hold hands and walk into the orange future together, I think it's like, understand what that whole spectrum looks like, prepare for the worst, hope and build for the best. But man, when I see senators and members of government organizations start to get it and start to opt into it, it really makes me optimistic that the peaceful, awesome path is going to be the way.
I'm not very optimistic. I think it's going to get intense.
Prepare for that. Yeah. I mean, play defense for sure, in case it is not that. But I'm an optimist.
Well, I see some. There's been, particularly in the last few days, there's some kind of discussion about the semantics of Bitcoin, and like you have white blood cells in your body, and they attack the invaders. It attacks viruses, right? And it destroys those viruses. It's destructive. The white blood cells are not pussyfooting around. They're not trying to talk the viruses into behaving better. They go out and they get them. And Bitcoin, on some level, you can say that similar to a white blood cell, it's going after fiat money. It's seeking out fiat money where it can and going after it. So on a level that it's not, it's aggressive. The protocol is aggressive. The result is this hard money environment in the hard money world that, and you can say, demonetizes war, and it monetizes peace. It demonetizes war, and what's left is peace. That's the result. But on its operational level, it's aggressive. The difficulty adjustment is hacking people's minds in an aggressive way. The result that the protocol has on some people, like Nassim Taleb or Peter Schiff or Nouriel Roubini, right? They are having a reaction that's really quite pronounced, right? They're not just saying, well, it's cute, but I'm not interested. I mean, they are staking their entire careers and losing, right? So that's aggressive. It's aggressive. So, but this is not to be unexpected, because nature is full of this duality of aggression and what's non-aggression. I mean, if you look out into the forest and you see, oh my God, it's so beautiful, right? But on the ground in the forest, there's a lot of aggressive things going on. Bugs are attacking each other, and everyone's, attacking everybody else. I mean, that's what's happening with life. So Bitcoin mimics life. It is a life force, and some say it's self-aware. I mean, I think we can make the case that it's a self-aware, being that is on its own vector, and it's and so we're seeing that play out. The result is peace, because it demonetizes war. But the protocol itself seems like a white blood cell or something else you'd find in nature is pretty aggressive.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think that discussion this week has been fascinating. I don't remember the name of the gentleman who sort of injected that new content into the conversation. He was on LinkedIn, I believe, and kind of in the military space, younger guy, and now has been going hard on Twitter. And the reactions have been mixed, but overall, I think it's really healthy for us and for the ecosystem. I know it's got me thinking critically about what is sort of, is this some zero sum game? What is attack? What is defense? What is violent? What is peaceful? And just the nature of all that and the semantics around it.
Right. Another word. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, I still love describing, I do think Bitcoin is the most peaceful revolution in history. And I love that narrative. It resonates with me and I genuinely believe it to be true. But yeah, when you think about it in terms of like an immune system, like white blood cells and like some of what you were describing in nature, there is this, in order to play defense and protect the value that one creates in the world, there is some amount of sort of violence to that. So how to characterize all that gets very nuanced. But yeah, I think Bitcoin's the most peaceful upgrade we've ever had.
Right. It is peace. It is love. And there is a bloodless coup, so to speak. It is a revolution going on, and it's unlike any we've seen, because people are simply, by adopting and hodling Bitcoin, they're demonetizing war. Okay. Yep. But the people who are being demonetized are not just going to roll over.
Totally.
So now another word that came up this past week, which was kind of interesting, is this word voluntary versus, let's say, a word like involuntary. So the discussion points around this idea, well, people voluntarily get into Bitcoin. Nobody's quote unquote forcing them. And okay, that's true. But if you look at the protocol again as this white blood cell immune response, it happens involuntarily, right? So the white blood cells in our body involuntarily go after the virus. We don't put the command out. We don't get the message in our brain like, hey, there's an invader in your liver. You should send out a white blood cell, click yes to agree, or click no to disagree, right? It's involuntary. It just goes. That's the way the DNA is programmed of human being over a long, long time of evolution. So similarly, Bitcoin is going after the fiat money involuntarily, right? So there's not a voluntary action. Number one. Number two, on the subject of, are people voluntarily or involuntarily deciding to go into Bitcoin? So let's just take that apart for a second. And I'm not making a conclusion here and now, but just look at it, take apart the pieces for a second. If in fact, since 1971, we live in an all fiat world and controlled by the central bankers. And we know that they're increasing the fiat money by trillions and trillions. And the rate at which they're increasing the fiat money has gone up exponentially. And we know that that has the impact of debasing our purchasing power of our money. That is to say, the value of our work, the value of our savings, the value of our sovereignty, right? So they're doing that in a way that is pretty off the charts. It's pretty crazy. So at some point, and we saw this, for example, in Cyprus, when the Cypriot government decided to pull people's money out of their bank accounts, people, moved over to Bitcoin. So, in other words, you could make the case, again, semantics would come into play here, but you could make the case that those people were forced to buy Bitcoin due to the actions of the fiat money players. So I think that there's an element there that might want to come into one's consideration of this conversation, because if the fiat money people continue to print money the way that they are, it's going to force people to buy Bitcoin. Certainly in countries where they're hyperinflating, they're forcing people to buy Bitcoin. And so and again, as Bitcoin makes inroads into the fiat money world, and they get more and more threatened. We remember that the only response that the fiat money world has to any problem is to print more money. Like Joe Biden, for example, here we have a big crisis in Afghanistan, and the only thing we've heard out of the Biden administration is that they're going to increase food stamps by 25%, the biggest leap in food stamp printing in the history of food stamps. That's their response, always. It's always to print more money. There's never diplomacy. There's never any nuance. There's never any context. There's never any attempt to look at the root problem. They only print money. And so that means everyone's equity is debased. So that's not right. So they're forcing people they're forcing this confrontation. So I guess the point is that it's not really that Bitcoiners are deciding it's voluntary, it's not force, it's all about peace. Okay, that's great. But we're living in an environment now that's, for the first time in history, all fiat money. Never happened before. This is the 50-year anniversary of this experiment. And those people have decided in collusion, all the major central banks are going to hit the gas, and they're going to print. And how is this not an attempt by that group to create a permanent underclass, right? The serfdom, by using that printed money to buy every productive capacity, all corporate mergers, all productive capacity of the economy owned by those who are doing the money printing. How is that not an enormous problem? And so the time seems imminent. I just hope that I hope this message gets out that the time to get into Bitcoin is now. I don't see there's not much of a grace period left, really. The urgency is pressing, in my view.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think about it in those terms too, of the immune system and almost information signals that are passed back and forth that trigger these responses, and to your point, a lot of it, when it comes to our immune system and our biology, is this involuntary reaction. It's just biochemical, and it simply occurs. And you can almost think of the legacy fiat system and the central banking system as this system that everyone is in. And I think in large part, they remain in it because the information signals about money have been dampened. It's hidden right behind all of this complicated jargon. So no one feels their purchasing power being taken from them, right? That's the insidious brilliance of the central banking paradigm, is that, hundreds of years ago, if the government wanted the wealth you created in the world, they had to send a tax collector out on a horse to go and take your crops or your money or your, whatever the resource is. And so that was just very tangible. You could feel what you made in the world being taken from you. And because it was so easy to see that, there were revolts and there were revolutions, and people didn't, they played defense, and you couldn't take too much from people because the people would revolt. And the horrible brilliance, the horrible brilliance of central banking is that nobody can feel what's being taken from them. And so now, as I think for the last few decades, since 1971, the government and the central banks have done a good job of boiling the frog, right? They've done it slow enough that it's not obvious what's happening. But now, with the magic of the internet and Twitter and less centralized forms of communication, we can talk about how central banking works. More people are beginning to have their eyes opened to this system. And they can, now that the money printing is really kicking into high gear, they can feel prices rise. They can feel stuff getting more expensive. And so that, finally, these information signals are making it to them and triggering that response of wow, should I do something about this? Should I opt in to this parallel system, this Bitcoin thing, and store my value there? And so one could even make the case that since Bitcoin was brought into existence 12 years ago, it has just kind of been, it was set in motion. And now it's just a matter of those information signals being received.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
it's
point. The information signals are obfuscated, and then, but as you point out, right now we're seeing real inflation, and so that's the signal is breaking through, and that's sounding the alarm. Totally agree.
Housing in Tucson has doubled in 5 years. And I think that is just absolutely insane. And I agree with you, Max, on the urgency of this. This is a matter of survival for a lot of people. And that's part of the reason why I, am toxic. Like we have these central bankers that are doing things that are truly evil and stealing from people. And like you said, trying to create an underclass of people, and they do it just without any regard whatsoever. And this is what we're battling right now, is we're battling for self-preservation and human freedom. And the stakes are extremely, extremely high.
Right. And so, for example, the state's increasing food stamps as they have radically under Biden's suggestion, right? They're buying votes, they're buying allegiance, they're buying people to come on their side. And that's going to be a problem going forward, because as millions of people rely entirely on transfer payments and are completely a ward of the state, those people are not going to be happy to give it up to go over to Bitcoin. So that's one of the conflicts that we have. The money printing is going to be loved by the majority of folks, right? Particularly if the inflation kicks in. And I have this conversation with progressives all the time. I go on progressive podcasts and I try to talk about this, and they're all for, we need more money printing, we need more relief for homeowners and renters, we need more Medicaid, we need more food stamps. And the point that the money printing means that any gains you make with that fiat money is made up for and then some by the inflation. So net, you're actually doing worse for yourself. They don't want to take that on board because they have that high money preference, right? That high time preference. I mean, they're just thinking about the next day. Like, I need a ham sandwich today, and I kind of know what you're saying, but I got it. I need my ham sandwich today, and I'm not going to think about it. The government knows it, and they're recruiting aggressively with their money printing. So that's going to be an issue going forward.
Yeah, it's like the Cantillon effect to the max, just getting cranked up. So the people who are closest to that spigot where the new money pops into existence benefit the most from it. And they get to use that money to scoop up assets for themselves. The BlackRocks of the world get to buy all of the residential real estate. They get to give the money to their buddies for favors and kind treatment. And then that just widens the gap in wealth inequality, exacerbates it. And you have this ruling class when you take that to its fullest extent.
Yep.
With the progressives, like, welfare doesn't generate any sort of wealth. It actually, for the most part, like, it can be used positively. I'm not a supporter of welfare, but just, to give it the benefit of the doubt, it can be used positively as like a, immediate, like, fix, like if somebody doesn't have a home, to get them off the streets, but that doesn't help them in the long run in the slightest. Like, you can't buy a house with food stamps, and you can't, create a business with food stamps. You can't generate any sort of wealth. It actually incentivizes people not to. Max, have you ever had a conversation with Jimmy Dore before on this topic?
Yeah, I was on his show. We talked about it. I was a guest on his show, and we went through this whole thing about the inflation, how they hide inflation, how it's a real problem, and how money printing makes it worse, how Bitcoin is kind of the answer to it. And, he gave me a forum to talk about it, and he owns some Bitcoin, and he's like, it sounds, he's a bit curious, and I'd say more than other folks, perhaps. But again, within every single camp, there's always going to be some Bitcoin people in every single camp. There's going to be a few people for whom Bitcoin makes sense, that resonate, and then they act as that fifth column inside whatever group that might be, and so they're working to to transform that group. So I guess there's an analogy in biology as well, where one species, it's like the invasive clownfish, right? The lionfish. It comes from one area of the world and it shows up in another area of the world, and before you know it, that new area of the world is entirely made up of lionfish, and everything else is gone. So Bitcoin has a way to convert all ecosystems into a Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
One thing that I've been thinking a lot about recently is that Bitcoin maximalism is open-minded. And I think there's this intuitive sense that some people have when they hear Bitcoin maximalists say, "Oh, it's just going to be Bitcoin, one global money for the future. All these other coins are going to zero; they're worthless." And they say that can't be true. How can you be so close-minded to think that one thing is going to rule and that there's no room for all these other things? And I think that's a function of the fiat paradigm that we've existed in. And because governments have this monopoly on violence, they've been able to force people into these different fiat buckets and then to profit as people have to move between those fiat buckets. And so I think it's actually more open. Like at first, I was close-minded because I thought it would be this multi-coin future. When I started learning about this space, I thought, yeah, sure, multi-coin future makes sense. Maybe there will be one cryptocurrency for this, and maybe one for this city, one for this country, all of that. And I think that was me being too close-minded. I think that was me just assuming that the future has to look like the present without considering why the present looks the way that it does. But the simplest configuration for the world is simply one measure of value, one global store of value. And now that we are all digitally connected for the first time in history, that's feasible. We have the means to achieve it, and the strongest money can really win globally. But it takes being, I would argue, it takes being open-minded to arrive at that conclusion. And so I want to flip that Bitcoin maximalism is closed-minded on its head. I think it's the complete opposite.
Yeah, for sure. There's this. You see it playing out globally. So in countries where they don't have really the luxury of debating this point, they're just becoming hyper Bitcoinized. So in Nigeria, right, 32% of the country is now on Bitcoin. Vietnam, Chile, other countries that they just understand instinctively that this is how they're going to extricate themselves from a very messed up fiat money economy around the world. And only in countries like the US or the UK, which are chiefly the beneficiary of having the fiat money, do you find this kind of hesitancy or pushback or, the positioning Bitcoiners as toxic, right? That doesn't happen in Nigeria. There are no toxic Bitcoiners in Nigeria. There's only Bitcoiners and everyone else trying to be a Bitcoiner, right? So that's just marketing. And the shitcoins in the fiat world, they can afford marketing. Bitcoin has no marketing. There's no central place that would put out any marketing. But for the shitcoiners or the fiat coiners, they spend billions on marketing. And if they need more marketing, they print more, right? They can print more of the shitcoin, they can print more of the fiat. So, and we live in a world that is driven in large part by marketing, has kind of taken over in a big way, and people have very weak defenses against marketing. This is why memes are so incredible, because they go around all the standard gatekeepers of marketing, and they just hit people on a subconscious or an unconscious level in a way that we saw change the 2016 election, right? Because Hillary Clinton was completely destabilized by a Pepe the Frog meme, which just put her completely, was outside of her $1 billion marketing budget. And suddenly she was floundering publicly about a Pepe the Frog meme. And that impacted the results of a major election, right? So, Bitcoin, like memes, hits at an unconscious level. that we respond to as human beings that know the marketing gatekeepers ultimately will fail against. And there are no toxic Bitcoin maximalists in Nigeria. There are only Bitcoiners. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's
Well
super
said.
interesting.
The meme warfare is real, and I'm here for it.
The meme warfare is real, definitely.
It's funny watching the White House hire like TikTokers to put out their propaganda and try and replicate that. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, I heard that they were looking for people with between 10 and 30,000 followers and they were going to like compensate them for promoting like pro-vaccine information, like regardless of how you feel, like whether, you know, the vaccine is something you support or you don't. That just strikes me as strange. You know, a government entity needing to go and like find people with that kind of a following and then pay them to hype their marketing.
Well, it shows that they don't have any confidence in their position as with the authoritative truth, right? You would think that the U.S. government would have confidence that people would take them seriously, but when they notice that nobody takes what they're messaging seriously at this point, they go out there and they enter the meme wars. But so it's a sad comment, really, on the ability of the press corps of the White House not to be taken seriously by anyone.
100%.
It is really funny. It's interesting to watch the cathedral burn right now and them to just not have any sort of coherent narrative. Like I feel like when any politician is talking, they're talking to a small subset rather than the majority of the country. And there's this amazing fracturing that's happening. But yeah.
Well, we see that in the central bank. So the central bank distributes all the cash to the Wall Street bank, and the Wall Street banks hold on to the cash and they don't distribute it. And you get the Cantillon effect, and money velocity goes to zero. So the messaging from the White House, it goes out to the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, and others, and then they don't distribute it in a way as journalists, in a way that would be useful as information. They hoard it, they manipulate it, they essentially use it for themselves to give themselves these huge multi-gazillion dollar salaries, right? If they were just doing their job and to disseminate information from the White House, they would be paid like regular broadcast journalists. That is to say, 1/100th of their current pay. But they get paid like Jamie Dimon because they do the same thing as Jamie Dimon. They are gatekeepers for what should be readily available information, and they use it to aggrandize their own careers.
Yeah. It seems like they're cracking down and trying to put the gates up and, you know, eliminate any sort of individual content creators. And I kind of live under the assumption I'm going to get banned probably in the near future. Do you have any plans for that, Max? How you gonna...
Well, I also do these live shows. So, you know, the great thing about live theater, going all the way back to Greek times, is that, you know, you take it directly to the people on the stage. That's the whole purpose of theater. And the great dramatists going back 2,700 years were able to simply go right into people. So we'll just can do more live, which is fine. And you know, I like to, you know, I never really come out with a didactic, this is the way it is type of thing. I like to be, you know, be sarcastic or sardonic or you know, satirical to give cover, because it's very hard to ban satire. Satire is generally the last form of speech that gets banned. So people say, hey, Max is crazy, and why does Max say and do these things? Because I'm putting a satirical shield between me and the censors, because it's hard for people to censor stuff that's so obviously satirical. But you know, at some point, if you remove all satire, then you end up with you know, North Korea. right? There's no satire in North Korea, right? All satire is punishable by death. So that's, if some of these other countries want to go down that path, then hopefully we won't go down that path.
Yeah, and it has been cool, I think, to what you all have been doing with building up the community around like your Orange Pill podcast and the Telegram group and all of that, just so in the event that the mainstream platforms such as Twitter, if they dial up the censorship and if things become more fractured and balkanized, then you can still reach people.
Yeah, but this is the 1-year anniversary of Orange Pill podcast. So we've been on it, been doing it exactly 1 year, and it's grown really, really well. And I think we've kind of established a good format, a good thing going on.
Cool stuff.
It's a great podcast.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So it's relentless optimism is the message, and we just Renaissance 2.0, all the positive attributes about Bitcoin, But again, it's not about joining hands and singing Kumbaya. I mean, there's a lot. It's multidimensional. There's a lot going on, particularly as the folks that are who perceive this as a threat to them. I mean, they're going to be increasingly more agitated, I would say.
Yeah, it makes sense. I love the definite. I try to strive for definite optimism, and I think the ecosystem needs more of that. Just people who want to see a better future, but understand that it's not guaranteed. And in order to have it, we got to build.
I think where I'm really optimistic is in the plebs and in the normal everyday people that are not going to just roll over and die. And I think we're seeing that.
I'll tell you what makes me so happy and optimistic about the future is when I explain Bitcoin to Silicon Valley venture capitalists or the sort of Wall Street elitist types, and they dismiss it and they sneer at it and they turn their nose up. And then the next day I'll be in a gas station in a rural town and explain it to, a few people who I meet there. And it just really resonates with them quickly. And they think, wow, nobody can take the value of my hard work. This thing sounds cool. You can tell they're curious and they're interested. The more that dynamic continues, the more optimistic I become about the future. I love seeing that when it's dismissed by sort of the class that benefits the most from the Cantillon effect that we have today, and the people who are being taken advantage of most by the system we have today, they get it and they want to go explore it. Love to see that.
You guys got any thoughts on Mark Cuban?
Oh man, I saw him tweet just this morning. Actually, he was replying to some stuff about his most recent Dogecoin tweets. So, right, I guess the Dallas Mavericks team he owns is taking Dogecoin for merchandise. He thinks Doge is hot shit for medium of exchange. He also thinks it's cheap, so he's falling victim to the psychological unit bias, of course. But then if you read down into the replies, someone said, well, how much Bitcoin do you have and how much Doge do you have? And he didn't mention anything about Bitcoin, at least that I saw. And then he said, oh, well, I have $454 worth of Doge. That's really? You're hyping it up and you're this amped and that's your skin in the game. It's you're Mark Cuban and you have a few $100 worth. Okay. Don't tell me what you believe. Show me what's in your portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because he seems to be asking for publicly to help for people to help him understand Bitcoin. Right? He's playing he just goes out with these broadly inaccurate statements and seems to trying to pick up some information about it. But this has been going on for a while. And he doesn't seem to be picking up any information. But I think that's a good point, is that he doesn't own really any of it. He doesn't really own much of it. But that's the kind of thing but he obviously feels threatened by Bitcoin. So apparently does Elon Musk. So we have to ask ourselves, why do they feel threatened, and understand that it might be something that's we can never overcome, that whatever it is that's stopping them from understanding what's going on here, and they may never come to it, so it's just they may never come aboard.
I'm gonna lead when we hit hyper Bitcoinization, I'm gonna lead a campaign to buy a banana plantation for Mark Cuban.
Well, you never know where the seed's going to take root, right? You mean, the seed hit Michael Saylor and it turned into Michael Saylor, and it hit Mark Cuban and it died. So you never know where it's going to get, become fertile and grow.
Yeah. And there's that billionaire, I believe he's like the third or fourth richest person in Mexico. I can't recall his name, but he's an example of another one where seemed to get it, and not just bullish on Bitcoin, but very specifically Bitcoin only.
Yeah, Ricardo Price. Yeah, you're getting more and more. People are coming out and saying it's Bitcoin only, whether it's Jack Dorsey or the government of El Salvador. And again, that should be a message to shitcoiners, that so far no major player or state has mentioned anything but Bitcoin, for good reason. So that should be another warning sign that you might want to get out of Dodge. I mean, look what's happening to Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. It's just completely disappearing in real time. I think hash rate's down to about 0. Exchanges are dumping it, pools are dumping it. This is the fate of all of these things.
Yep. And when your blockchain's security model relies on a billionaire's ability to pay lawyers to go after people rather than sound technical fundamentals and proof of work, you're going to have a bad time.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I saw a funny tweet recently about proof of stake. I guess Charles Hoskinson has $1 billion of Cardano staked and is raking in $40 million a year.
The man is good at putting logos on flyers. He's really good at marketing. Just don't ask what any of the details of any of those particular projects or logos mean, because that is forbidden territory. but yeah, he's good at marketing, sadly.
I think he's one of the worst out there. I think he's one of the most sinister, like with the stuff that they're doing in Ethiopia. It's pretty bad.
That's what I worry about too when it comes to places like El Salvador. I think what El Salvador is doing is wonderful. I'm optimistic it's going to position them really well geopolitically, but I also worry that it creates a lot of opportunity and incentive for shitcoiners to swoop in and try to go on the ground to these vulnerable people who are looking for education on all of this stuff and convince them that their cryptocurrency is hot shit in order to pump their coin and essentially exploit those people. And so it's good that we have organizations like Bitcoin Beach down in El Salvador doing the right kind of Bitcoin education, but it's a whole country and there's a lot of people out there, and so the more Bitcoin educational content that we can all put out and that we can make accessible to people in those spots, the better.
I'm going to push back on that, because I think like Max was talking earlier, Nigeria, I think people are able to distinguish, in these countries are able to distinguish the difference between a shitcoin and Bitcoin, a lot easier than people in the US are, because we have the benefits of this fiat monetary system, and people just and are dumb here, I guess, in their decision making. But so I'm pretty bullish on that. I think what's really, scary with like the Cardano playbook is they're partnering with governments. And I think that is kind of a scary point. So, but I'm super bullish on people around the world adopting Bitcoin and like they're getting forced into it, kind of like Max was saying earlier, because the money printing is just so ridiculous.
Yeah, and I'll definitely clarify that, like, I agree they are extremely well positioned to understand the problems of the current fiat system. Like, they feel the pain from the current fiat regime, right? And so they are best positioned to be looking for alternatives. My concern is just that, we have the lifeboat of Bitcoin, we have the ark of Bitcoin, right? And there are these shitcoiners out there who will see these people who they know are in a position of needing somewhere to store their wealth, and they're going to come up with this shitcoin lifeboat and try to paint it and like make it look snazzier than the Bitcoin lifeboat in some surface level ways. And my hope is they don't convince people to get in their lifeboat, which is not the right one.
Right. Well, shitcoins wreck people all the time. People get wrecked on shitcoin. So we haven't yet seen a country get wrecked on a shitcoin, but I'm sure we will, and they'll learn a valuable lesson.
Yep. At the end of the day, hardest money is going to win.
Yeah, 100% agree. Max, are you going to be wearing shorter shorts in Phoenix?
Yeah, hell yeah. That's one of the reasons to come down here. Get the nice sun, nice, hot, sweaty, perfect for exposing my gams.
Are they progressively going to get shorter every show you go to?
It's hard to believe, but there seems to be no end to how short my short shorts can go.
Love it. Bullish on Thursday.
Yeah,
I'm so stoked. And you guys are going to be at Classic Crust Pizza on Wednesday.
Yeah, we're going to drop by. I don't want to spend too much time there because I tend to lose my voice quickly. So drop by, say hello to folks. And definitely, yeah, Classic Crust Pizza in Phoenix is the place to go to. If you're a Bitcoiner and you need a slice of za, you must go to Classic Crust Pizza in Phoenix as soon as possible. That's my recommendation.
I would plus one that. And they take Bitcoin, they take Lightning. But we had a nice little shindig there that the organizer and owner Alex put together on Bitcoin Pizza Day back in May, and there were a bunch of Bitcoiners.
Yeah, plus they got some coupons for free pizza at the event we're giving away, thanks to Classic Crust Pizza in Phoenix.
Love it.
I think he was the first person in Arizona to start accepting Bitcoin.
That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, seems like he's been building the scene out here for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Good stuff.
They've got good pizza. Max, are you guys got any thoughts on what's happening in Afghanistan right now? People have been asking in the chat.
Right. Well, I lived through this with the Saigon airlift. The CIA, which is a function of the government, we certainly fund them quite heavily. They seem to have been caught completely by surprise by all this, which is surprising. I mean, the president just a couple of days ago was saying, or a week ago or so, was saying how, yeah, in 3 months we're going to be winding down. And so it's a bit disheartening to see the U.S. government completely caught flat-footed and for the chaos that has erupted. But then again, it's not that surprising because the whole mission was ill-conceived, and the whole 20-year occupation was without a lot of thought seemingly put into it. And this is and going forward though, and I think geopolitically what we'll see is in the vacuum that once the U.S. is out, I think you'll see like China will probably actually move in, and they've got a kind of a plan for the One Belt, One Road initiative, which would extend from Europe through Eurasia all the way east to China, running through Afghanistan. So there is kind of a business plan. So China has a business plan. The U.S. never really had a business plan other than I don't know what the plan was. They just went in there, and I don't think there was ever a plan. At least China seems to have a business plan, so that's a good first step for them.
Yeah, it's wild. You had a tweet this morning that I really liked, asking what percentage of Americans will take responsibility or realize the responsibility falls on them for this event.
Right. So the Atlantic magazine just came out with a piece today saying essentially, hey, America, this is on you, kind of going into a lot of depth and talking about what's the history and what's going on there. But we know, I'm pretty sure, based on our observation of mainstream media and the political class in the US, that because this is really inconvenient truth, within a couple of weeks, we won't even hear it mentioned on mainstream media. They'll just try to completely forget about it. It won't be mentioned. It'll just be sweep it under the rug like it never happened. And then within a few months, we'll get the propaganda out. That'll be like, it was heroic adventure and the president is a hero. And we'll have a Hollywood movie come out, celebrating our heroic journey in Afghanistan. And it'll be Sylvester Stallone, Rambo Part 9, and Black Hawk Down, but it'll be Falafel Hawk Down, and it'll be celebrating the Sniper. Remember that one? That was another revisionist look at America's military past, and the revisionism. Industry will kick in pretty hard pretty soon. And blame everybody but ourselves, type of thing. So I've seen this now I'm 61 years old, so I've been politically conscious, for more than 40 years, and I've seen this movie before. It gets worse and worse with every remake. This is like, RoboCop Part 9, Rocky Part 17, right? They don't get better as they age, they kind of get worse.
Yeah, to your point, I think this is the part where they make the history textbook printer go burr with the narrative that they want.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. So it's we're going to see this play out. So the president is making a statement, I guess, coming out quickly, pretty soon, but as I said before making any statement about this at all, the only thing we've heard out of the White House in the last 72 hours is how they're increasing food stamps by 25%, the biggest increase ever in food stamp history. So they're already like telling people out there, I'm about to say some really outrageous, stupid shit, but just nod your head like a stupid dog in the window of a pet shop and I'll send you more free food stamps. Okay, America? I've got this. Thank you, Joe Biden.
Totally. There's also a good Bitcoiner. I don't know if you all follow Janie Gack. She's like at Janie Gack on Twitter, but she's a good Bitcoiner and she's on the ground over there in Kabul and has a very interesting perspective on things that doesn't exactly match the mainstream narrative that you'll see on CNN that most of America gets. So she's a good Twitter follow.
Oh, check it out.
This is the thing that's maddening with trying to figure out what's going on abroad. I experienced this a lot with like the Ukrainian civil war when it first started, because I had a lot of friends out there that were posting about what was happening in like Odessa and having to leave and stuff like that, and just getting the whatever narrative that's convenient thrown our way. And that was kind of like a major wake up for me, because I used to live out there and have some attachment to it. But yeah, they're going to have to start with the revisionism. They're going to have to start having digital textbooks here pretty soon to be able to change it super quickly.
The challenge of our age seems to be determining truth, like finding truth in a sea of abundant information and where anyone can post anything, right? And for decades, that hasn't been the case. We've had a few channels of information that come out through the radio and the TV, and those were highly regulated. And I think the world just got used to assuming that fact checking was happening and that was being vetted. And so all of the muscles that we as humans have had for doing critical thinking when we receive information and considering whether something is true or not and making that determination for ourselves, those muscles have atrophied for decades. And now we're abruptly in this place of the internet and no one can stop this flow of information effectively. And so we're really quickly, all this chaos, I think, is just us collectively realizing that we haven't worked those muscles in a while. And now we have to.
Yeah, absolutely. The muscles of critical thinking have atrophied. It's well put. It's exactly what's happening. And you can see how it works. You're reading a story about, let's say, tragedy somewhere in the world, and then beep, there's a meme of a kitty cat fighting with a bird in a bird bath somewhere, and it's gaslighting, right? You're like, your mind is like now totally distracted. Now your emotions are weird, like, oh, isn't that kitty so cute? But you were just feeling tragic about the tragedy, and then then you go back to the tragedy. So you get this emotional whiplash, information overload. Your immune system to bad ideas is breaking down, and so everyone's like this amorphous blob that's just connected digitally and responding like starlings murmurating over your town to waves and waves of propaganda.
Well put.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Thank you, public schools.
Well, public schools, if I might jump in here, public schools is, when I was in public school, elementary school, I think it was the beginning when corporations used to come in and kind of, they've taken over the public school, right? So we used to, they were very big on promoting junk food. That was because they come in and they say, let us handle your cafeteria needs. Oh, by the way, we're going to sell you this junk food. Let us handle, we're going to starve the public school of funding. Let a corporation come in there and handle all your audiovisual needs. And by the way, here's a package of stuff that you're going to play on these audiovisual needs, right? So there's something to be said about having a base education for everybody that is accessible and well managed, right? Everyone should read all the classics, from Plutarch through, Malcolm McLaren and the Sex Pistols, and be conversant in a basic understanding of history. And that can be done cheaply, and it should be accessible by everybody. And you don't need any corporate infiltrations. So there is a way to do that. Which I think serves the community at the end of the day, right? So I'm not one of these anarcho-capitalists that think that all government is to be abolished. I think we, the people, we vote for our governance model. There's a social contract. We let you do what you do in exchange for certain things. And one of those things should be allowing the youth, the children, the ability to get educated. And by that, I mean, we are Western people sitting on 2,700 years of Western knowledge and art and science that over the course of 15 or 16 years, the average person can grok. They can leave high school with being somewhat educated, right? So, but we don't really have, just like we don't have free market capitalism, it's been taken over by money printers. We don't really have a public education either. We have whatever it is. It's junk food, indoctrination, if you will. That, but at the end of the day, though, you do have the situation as Stephen's talking about, where nobody at this point, your ability to fend off misinformation has just completely collapsed, and people are just living in hell as far as information goes.
Definitely. I probably lean more toward the anarcho-capitalist side on some of those issues, but I think 80% of the ways in which the anarchists of the world and the anarcho-capitalists of the world would make change mirror just most conservatives, right? Or most libertarians. So I think a lot of people get hung up on who's going to build the roads? Are we going to eliminate libraries? Are we going to eliminate schools? And I'm sort of like, that's an interesting discussion that gets really nuanced. It's fun to talk about, but let's start with just this whole military industrial complex and the Department of Defense that sometimes functions more as a Department of Offense. And we can get to the other interesting stuff later.
Well, look at the Bitcoin protocol. It's the most governed set of monetary policies ever in history, algorithmically predetermined, path determinant, heading in a direction, but it provides freedom. But at its core, it has in its immutable set of algorithmic code that's embedded in the protocol, right? So That's not anarchy, right? It's it's the furthest thing from anarchy. So, but it works. It provides freedom. So, that governance, it's the best governance model that ultimately kills the nation state. I mean, the nation state tries to provide a set of rules, like in the United States, for example. That was an attempt to create a governance model that opened up entrepreneurialism and free markets and things like that. And unfortunately, it's been co-opted by different influences. So, but here with the Bitcoin protocol, because it's global, it is a base layer economy, and it does provide sovereignty on an individual basis. So then it not only challenges fiat money, but it also challenges the whole nation state model as well. So I don't think any nation state as such is going to survive Bitcoin. Now, what takes its place is an interesting conversation. But the nation state, in its attempt to provide a social contract, as John Locke would describe it, back in the 1700s, I think that we're entering that period.
Yep, I agree completely with you about the demise of the nation state. I think that I see Bitcoin as a breakthrough in defensive technology. And the only reason that the nation state has been able to exist and sustain itself is because technology has favored the power of attack and nation state attack. And so there haven't been effective ways for individuals to protect their purchasing power from the nation state. They can, I think maybe we lost Alex.
There he's back.
There we go. We still, I think we're still live.
Why are you gaslighting me, man? I can't take it. I'm losing my mind.
What's true? What is true? But yeah, so I am excited about Bitcoin as a defensive technology, a breakthrough in defensive technology. Finally lets individuals protect their wealth from the nation state. They can certainly, seize it. They can torture individuals. They can do horrible things and perhaps get them to hand over their Bitcoin, but they cannot just cheaply and freely and quietly extract it from the masses at large scale. And so I think that makes the whole nation state paradigm unsustainable, too costly, and they simply will not be able to do it in the future.
Agreed.
For me personally,
it's kind of hard to you sound a little bit muffled, Alex. I can't understand you.
Is that better?
Much better.
There you go.
Cool. Yeah, I think what it comes down to at the end of the day is it's about personal responsibility and doing what's best for you. And I think a lot of people are waking up to that, like sending their kids to schools is not very helpful for them in our current state of where they're at. And I see Bitcoin as like the biggest empowerment. It's political speech, money is speech, and people that don't have money don't have a voice. And Bitcoin allows for you to not be a wage slave more so than other assets, because you have actual ownership over it. So, yeah.
I agree. It's interesting to think about what that future is going to look like. And all I know is I think it'll be a lot more localized and there will be a lot more accountability.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So kind of wrapping up, what's got you guys bullish?
What's got me bullish? A lot of stuff has me bullish. I think the potential for a Bitcoin ETF to be approved, I think it's mostly a matter of when, not if, and the odds of that seem to be increasing. I think there will be another, big corporate adopter of Bitcoin sometime within the next 6 months. And those two things combined make me really bullish on the Bitcoin price in the near to medium term. And then just technologically, I love seeing us continue to build up the stack, right? So Lightning is really been validated over the last 18 months or so. And we're seeing what Strike, Jack Mallers are doing in places like El Salvador. And now we're even starting to see layers develop on top of Lightning. So Lightning is a Bitcoin layer 2, and now we're seeing platforms like Impervious AI, which is developing a layer 3 on top of Lightning, making it easier for developers to build apps that sort of inherit the security, the encryption, the decentralization benefits from that Bitcoin and Lightning bring, but just make it easier to build apps, build decentralized VPNs, stream content, and be compensated in sats for it. So it's cool to see. Well, and I think the more that we do that, the more that the ecosystem grows up the stack, the more gravity Bitcoin has, and the more life gets sort of sucked out of shitcoins.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, that's well said. So the what's happening in El Salvador and Nigeria with Lightning and the layer 2 and layer 3, it's all kicking in now, and it does, you know, put all the shitcoins kind of in a negative light in a big way, because there's nothing really that they're offering, and so that's a lot of capital that's going to be flowing into Bitcoin. You know, the recent wrangling in Congress about some of the legislation surrounding Bitcoin, it's interesting that they kind of carved out Bitcoin and saying, like, you know, there's nothing we can do about it. But these other things like proof of stake and other things, you know, we actually maybe can, you know, look more closely at them. I think they are vulnerable to regulation. You know, when I say that, people say, oh, you know, you shouldn't be rooting for regulation. What I'm saying is that the reality is that those projects are open to being regulated out of existence, right? So I know that supposedly there's a grandfather clause protecting Ethereum, but you know, the fact is it's an unregistered security sale, and it should be addressed as such. And that's true, you know, for lots and lots of these things. And but more importantly, I just think that the capital is going to flow out of them, because as other countries adopt Bitcoin, you know, the leisure class in America, the shitcoining leisure class, is going to figure out that this is where the action ultimately is going to be anyway. So that it'll just migrate accordingly.
Yep, makes a lot of sense.
Well, I'm bullish because Max and Stacy are here in Arizona. We're gonna have a great event.
Yeah, love to see it.
It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there any laws in Arizona about it being like absolutely completely naked on stage?
You know, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness.
You know, they must have. Yeah, I'll look into that. That actually might stop a lot of people from coming, so I have to think twice about that.
Cost benefit analysis.
Too much information.
GG Allen can do it. Anybody can.
GG Allen. Okay, I'll look that up.
He's like
good stuff. This is fun.
Yeah, he was a wild dude. But yeah.
Cool.
Well, I really appreciate your time, guys. Thanks for agreeing to this on such short notice.
Yeah, this has been fun. Thanks for putting this together, Alex.
Yeah, a lot of
Good times,
fun.
guys.